Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Porters, and I'm joined by sweet Shanzi Kovacs from the internet.
This movie would be a lot different if made today.
And of course, Bruce Leslie.
Yes, it would be.
He is enthused to the nines, everybody, because this week we're talking Richie Rich from, I believe, 1994. Whoo, Big Mac at his, or Little Mac at his biggest, I would say, right around there, because he was ruling the world back in 1994. And does Richie Rich hold up? We'll find out very soonly. But before we do that, we do want to say a big giant thank you to everyone who helps support this show over at patreon.com/HMP. Those fine people get the pre-show, post-show, and of course, the Dinger Zone. We are into Fast and Furious 8, Fate of the Furious this week, everybody. So we got one more movie in the Fast and Furious franchise. We're doing Hobbs and Shaw next week, and then after that, we are transitioning on to a new little series, and we'll talk a little bit more about that next week. If you'd like to get those episodes and all the good stuff and help this show at the same time, for heaven's sake, please head on down to patreon.com/HMP today. Join up and, not only help the show, but get yourself more at the exact same time. That's what's kind of cool about it, and we appreciate all of you fine folks that do just such a thing. And in fact, sign up now, because next week, you guys who support us over at patreon.com/HMP are going to be able to vote for the movie that we watch next week. That's right. Every single month, we put that back into your hands, and you tell us what we should be watching, and we'll talk about those. We haven't discussed those, so we'll probably talk about those in the closing show, a little post show that we do here, patreon.com/HMP. Get in on the inside, everybody. But before we get to Richie Rich here proper, we do have a 5-star review on iTunes, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
This one comes to us from Jersey City Frankie, and frankly, if you're from Jersey City, I figure you got to be named Frankie just by default. It's entitled Substance. I appreciate so much hearing the backstories and gossip behind the production of these films. Far too many movie podcasts ignore this aspect. I'd like to know how the Hollywood sausage gets made. Ooh, that sounds... Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. But we do try to, give a little bit of insight here, and I'm sure we'll do some of that with today's movie, as I was the proper age when Richie Rich came out and everything. So we'll get to a bit of that. So Jersey City Frank, thank you for that 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
And we really want to outshine Maria Menounos in every way, shape, and or form. So you do that by reviewing us on iTunes. We really appreciate that. We must take her down at all costs or be bought by her company and given lots of money. Either or, I don't care which way it goes. I either want to join the force or destroy at all costs. It's up to her, really.
She's such a lovely lady.
She is.
And for you to have, she is my mortal enemy. Okay.
It's got to be somebody, Just be glad it's not one of us, Sean.
Yeah, exactly. Keep it to yourself. All right, everybody, let's get into it. Here's the trailer for Richie Rich.
Welcome to the home of the richest kid in the world. The home of Richie Rich.
Hello?
Richie, dear, liver is rich in protein. It's very good for you.
It's so tasty, too.
He has his own baseball coach.
Nice hitting, Richie.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
A theme park.
Man, it must be cool to have everything.
And even a personal trainer.
My name is Claudia.
Yikes.
He had everything a boy could want.
You have your own McDonald's?
Except the one thing he wanted the most.
I'm wondering if you guys can come over this weekend, hang out.
Hang out?
Friends.
Maybe I can play with you guys.
Not!
But when someone tried to steal the family fortune,
I hate that kid. What are you after? The vault, Richard. The Rich family vault.
he finally got his chance.
Richie?
Boy, do I have a job for you guys.
Remember this. You have the power of your father inside you.
Trust the Force, Luke.
Now,
Access approved.
Richie did it! He's in! Let's go!
whether by land
Let's kick some spot, shall we?
Fire.
by air, or simply by luck, they'll come to the rescue. Warner Brothers presents an adventure so big, even the richest kid in the world can't afford to miss it.
Yes!
Macaulay Culkin.
I used to think you were just some spoiled rich kid, but now you're not so bad.
Richie Rich.
Round one to you, sir.
All right, everybody, that was the trailer for Richie Rich from 1994. He's not based on a comic book character, but you know what time it is, everybody.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Well, I really should have said we don't think of him as a comic book character, but that's wrong, right, Bruce?
Yeah, because Richie Rich is a comic book character.
Very much so.
He came from a comic published by Harvey Comics, the lamest of the comics, starting in Little Dot #1 in 1953. Now, the tagline for Richie Rich is "The Poor Little Rich Boy," because I think we're supposed to feel sorry for him on account of he's so rich he can't have a normal life. Now, I'm not real sure why they call him the poor little rich boy. I'm going to reveal my personal bias here, but it's kind of hard for me, the guy who grew up in a secondhand trailer in maybe the dirtiest trailer park in all of Appalachia, to have sympathy for billionaires. Like, come at me, man. Come at me however you want, but it's just not going to happen. I'm never going to stand up and say, but what about the poor billionaires? Won't somebody think about their needs? In general, I think they do a pretty darn good job of looking out for themselves. Even the chubby, blonde, prepubescent ones are probably going to be just fine. Now, somehow billionaires have it so good that they don't even overdose on drugs. I don't know if you've noticed this. Like, what's up with that? Millionaires overdose all the time. It's mostly rock stars and actors and things, but still, they're millionaires just the same. But when's the last time you ever heard of a billionaire overdosing? I think something about being that rich must protect them.
Well, you can have all the Narcan that you want stuck in the...
Yeah, you know they do all the drugs they want, so there's something about it, man. But Richie Rich, he's probably anti-drugs, so he's got that going for him. Richie Rich is so rich that his middle name is a $sign. I don't know if you guys knew this, and I'm not joking. It's canon that his middle name is actually just a $sign, and I think it's pronounced Cash. I think they referred to him as Richie Cash Rich.
Heck yeah, boy.
and I got to say, I think that's pretty gross. I think being so obsessed with your wealth that you give your kid the middle name $sign is foolish. You need to leave that foolishness to Kesha and her family.
Hey, if he's got the C for the C's on the Richie Rich as the cent sign, you can't have that. So you got to put the $sign in there to just up the game. You know what I mean?
The C for the cent sign is almost like poverty. Like that's like the entire opposite of his.
So you got to bring him back up with the $sign. It only makes sense.
I don't think so. I think you can skip those special characters. People seem to love the comic books about rich kids. For 32 consecutive years, Richie Rich was Harvey Comics' most popular character.
Wow.
And I got to say, I would have thought that Casper, the friendly ghost, would have given him a run for his money, pun fully intended. But it probably says a lot about me that I'm less disturbed by the ghost of a dead child than I am about a kid born into seemingly limitless wealth. Richie Rich is like Bruce Wayne if his parents had skipped the opera that night. Just super rich. End of story, full stop. That's his origin story. Born rich and stayed that way. What was wrong with Alfred Harvey? Like in the 50s, there were so many great comic book ideas that hadn't been thought of yet, and his two best ones are a spoiled brat and the ghost of a kid who, and I do believe this is canon, died during the Spanish flu. Like the concept of animals that can run really fast had hardly been tapped into yet. I mean, mice and birds probably off to the table at that point, but the hedgehog thing was wide open in the 1950s. But Harvey has to remind kids how poor and likely to die they are. I was born like 4 decades too late, guys, because I know my ideas aren't all winners, but they got to be better than what Harvey Comics came up with. Like a moose who loves racing his penny farthing bicycle. That's something I just came up with. And you know what? I think that's a better idea than Richie Rich or Casper, the friendly ghost of a disease-riddled child, right? You guys have to have my back on that one. Comcast, of all people, Comcast owns Harvey Comics now. And I'm not sure how that happened, but if you're keeping track, that means Disney owns Marvel, AT&T owns DC, and Comcast owns Harvey. So it's unlikely we'll ever see that Casper Ghost Rider crossover everybody's been wanting.
Oh, darn it.
Did you know that at his peak, Richie Rich was appearing in 32 different titles every 60-day cycle? Yeah, there were 32 different. Some were monthly, some were weekly, some were bi-monthly. So you go into a 60-day cycle, 32 different Richie Rich titles.
Man.
And all of the titles were money puns with names like Richie Rich Dollars and Cents or Richie Rich Riches. They didn't even try to be clever with that one, did they? They just called it Richie Rich Riches. Pity the child with a mild speech disorder trying to ask for that comic at his local drugstore. There's a comic book historian, a guy named Mark Arnold, and he claims that Richie Rich comics were the most popular comics in the 1970s. That's right. The great Bronze Age comics Marvel was publishing, the incredible stuff Jack Kirby did with the New Gods, Dennis O'Neil and Neil Adams' legendary Green Arrow, Green Lantern run. All of that had to take a backseat to a little punk that didn't do anything but hit the genetic jackpot, and he was born to rich parents. It's like that sports guy said that one time. Some people are born on third base and think they hit a triple. Richie Rich was so rich, he had a robot maid named Irona. How do you think that made me, trailer park dwelling 9-year-old Bruceville? Don't you think I wanted a robot maid? Of course I wanted a robot maid when I was 9. Heck, I want a robot maid now, but I'll never have one because I wasn't born into a cartoonishly rich family. Richie Rich was so rich that he had his own personal scientist, Dr. Keenbean. What's a kid need with his own personal scientist? I can come to terms with the robot maid, but the scientist is a person, not a child's toy. And what kind of cruel inbreeding led to that dog with those $ spots all over him? If you're ridiculously wealthy, the least you can do is adopt a shelter dog. I mean, have some dignity. You know what? I think Harvey Comics can go take a flying leap with Casper the Plague Boy and Richie, I'm What's Wrong with the World Rich, and Baby Huey, who I'm just declaring guilty by association. just go. But leave us Sad Sack and Hot Stuff the Little Devil. You know, the good Harvey characters. Let's leave us those and dump the rest in the lake, you soulless monsters.
I think Bruce has had a week.
I think so too. As you were doing your connection here, I looked it up on eBay to see how much it would cost to buy Richie Rich's first appearance.
Yeah.
And so his first appearance is in Little Dot.
Yep,
and
1953.
Yep. Wow. Wow. And it's yours for $1,260.
That's not bad, really.
Ironically, you kind of got to be Richie Rich to afford that.
I mean, all things considered, I mean, if that's in
it's a terrible
real bad
because it's a 1.5 rating.
Ooh, gosh. Okay.
I'm just going to give
CBCS. So
I'm going to hit you guys with a hypothetical. How many things that cost $1,200 would I have to already have before I bought Little Dot number 1?
Ooh, probably most of them. It's like I'm not a Richie Rich fan, but I am off the chain for Little Dot.
Because there's a whole lot of different stuff I'd like to have for $1,200. I'd have to have first before I could justify spending it.
But what
on Little Dot number 1?
What if you were like the Little Dot fan and like Richie Rich's first appearance is the thing that's keeping you from getting your entire collection? You're like,
well,
that's
it's the first
Richie
issue
Rich.
of Little Dot, so.
Well, but it's so expensive because of the Richie Rich, I guess. I don't know.
Because of Richie Rich. I mean, geez.
Where is that Little Dot movie though? Really? What did I feel like I've known the name, but like I don't know much about the Little Dot.
I think Little Dot could be next to me on the bus, and other than like a living cartoon character next to me on the bus, I wouldn't
know the difference. That's fair.
Well, with the way that they're going on Netflix now, with just cycling through all of these Harvey characters, you got to imagine that at some point there's going to be a Little Dot.
Well, there is a TV show called Harvey Street Kids on Netflix that's like a cartoon show that has Little Dot on it.
Oh,
and a Harvey Girls.
And Richie Rich itself has gotten himself an own series on Netflix, but we needed to wind the clock back to 1994 before we covered all that new Richie Rich stuff. We're going back to the OG stuff here. We got Macaulay Culkin. This one is directed by Donald Pertwee, who you may not know that name, but you probably know a decent number of his flicks. probably best known for like Mystic Pizza, Grumpy Old Men. He did Miss Congeniality, How to Lose a Guy in 5 Days, plus a whole bunch of TV. So kind of a director for hire, but a guy who does pretty solid work overall.
Yeah, I mean, he's a lunch pail director. I mean, and I'm not, I know I just put a spin on that. That's pejorative, but I mean, Grumpy Old Men is a good movie.
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
Movie. It's a fun movie, and thing is it's very utilitarian. All his movies. I mean, Miss Congeniality. No one is going to confuse that for the best movie of all time, but it's a fun movie.
Yeah, it's fun for what it is. Exactly. He puts out good stuff that's good enough to be nice, entertaining flair that everyone will, kind of like.
I feel like he's a quality guy to direct other people's movies. Like, I don't think a single thing on his filmography was a passion project that he had to make.
No, probably not.
Right.
And the writers here were also kind of on a hot tear in 1994, even specifically, because they had not only this movie, but they also had The Flintstones and Getting Even with Dad. So they didn't have too many other credits, but that's what they were rocking with at that point as well. So they were on kind of a hotbed. And really, the 90s, the late 80s to early, really even mid-90s, was such a hotbed for like great kid movies, because you had everything from like Jumanji, Matilda, Sandlot, and Hocus Pocus, Breakfast Club, Hook, of course the Home Alone movies, Parent Trap.
Did you just put Breakfast Club in the same sentence with Matilda and
or Babysitter's Club is what I guess I meant to say. I'm sorry.
Okay, Babysitter's Club, I get it. The Breakfast Club, Richie Rich, and Matilda. 3 movies you must watch.
Well, Requiem for a Dream.
Requiem for a Dream. The stuff the kids love. But you had like Mighty Ducks. When it came to like these live action movies, Beethoven, the Dennis the Menace flick, there were a lot of cool live action stuff for kids in the 90s. And this was it.
Well, the reason why that is because one of the most successful movies of all time was made a few years earlier, which is Home Alone. And so everybody was like, oh, if we make a movie that appeals to the entire family, and I don't mean that in the pejorative of, a family-friendly movie. I mean a movie that is done well so that even adults can enjoy it, then they knew that they were going to make some money.
And it was also peak VHS.
Yes.
Oh, big time. Everybody. I mean, I had all of those movies on VHS. They ran heavy rotation in the Porter's household, which brought me to Richie Rich, because I was, when we talked about this, I was like, you know what? I remember seeing trailers for that a whole bunch when I was a kid. And I feel like maybe I'd seen like a little bit on TV, but I was like, I don't think I've ever really seen this. But man, watching it this week, I realized I have seen this movie a lot of times. I don't remember how, but boy, oh boy, did I know so much about this movie going in once it got rolling here, man.
Yeah, this is one I think like I've never really seen. It's one that feels like it was on cable a bunch for a little while, and I probably did watch a little bit of it here and there, but it's not a movie that, I mean, Sean, we were like the worst possible age when this movie came out. 20 years old. When you're 20, you're definitely way too old.
Thing you want to say.
Yeah, and it's like if you're 40, then maybe you have some nostalgia or you have kids to take. If you're 15, maybe you're still getting taken there by your parents because you can't technically see rated R yet or something, or maybe you're just a Macaulay Culkin fan. But 20 is like the one age I can guarantee you are not going to be like people could handcuff you, drag you to the theater. You're finding a way to escape.
I had not. Watching this movie this week is the first time I'd ever seen it, and I came to the realization while I was watching it is that not only have I never seen this movie, I've never seen anything Richie Rich, and so going into this, it was like, oh, okay, I see what they're going for here. And I was wondering if it's the sort of thing like where are there huge Richie Rich fans? Are there people who, are just like super excited for a Richie Rich movie?
So here's the thing. In 1994, this is a Macaulay Culkin movie, first
Right.
and foremost. He'd come off of Home Alone. It was just so gigantically huge.
This movie is the moment that the Macaulay Culkin bubble burst. Like, this was the last movie he made until he was an adult.
And you can tell, you can watch this thing and like you can practically see him growing up from a couple of scenes to a couple different scenes, and you're like, oh, he definitely looks older in that scene than he does in, another scene. Oh,
plus massive wealth and superstardom was probably starting to take a little toll on young Mac at this point, because like behind the scenes reports are like, for no reason, he just carried a coconut around on set whenever he wasn't shooting. Like, starting to do some weird eccentric stuff.
Well, I don't know what you know about his family life, but it was not good. Macaulay Culkin's parents were pretty terrible people, took very much advantage of him and his brothers throughout their careers and everything. So,
not just a coincidence that they all started acting at ridiculously young ages?
No, it is not. And hilarious, and one of the big things I have got to applaud in this movie is having Rory Culkin in there as younger Richie. Oh,
that was great.
So good. Yeah. I was just like, that's a Culkin kid because he looks just like him.
Same hairline, everything.
Oh my Lord, it's hilarious. It's so great. But I was really excited that they did that. I thought that was super cool. But his parents were terrible.
I will tell you that I think because Bruce clearly sitting in the Sean seat this week. Just like, I hate this. I hate everyone. I hate you. I hate myself. This week, it's a little different because I really enjoyed watching this, but I enjoyed watching it almost as a time capsule. Like, it's not ironic yet, really. Like, there's no tongue in cheek. We know that this is stupid that we're making this movie. Like, that hasn't happened yet, because I think that starts happening after Brady Bunch. But
yeah,
this is we just want to make a really great Richie Rich movie, and so you have this weird dichotomy of like, you have the kids who are the quote normal kids who are saying things like "nah" and "that's whack," stuff like that, where it's like, oh, okay, so that's the time we're in, and seeing technology. The technology in this movie is just unsurpassed for its greatness of the time period, where it's fanciful and like, hey, maybe rich people have this, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, like,
rich people.
Sure.
Rich
and that
people
part
have
is
robot
so
bees.
fun. Huh?
I said rich people have robot bees.
Well, the robots and all that stuff. That's and if we can, I want to get into this for a second.
Yeah,
a far superior, far more interesting movie is a Keenbean movie, because Keenbean is completely fronted by a billionaire where there is there's no problem with cost.
Yeah.
He can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants to. And so he is going to be a crazy mad scientist who occasionally has to make something for a small boy.
Yeah.
Like that's the only thing that's holding him back, is occasionally the very rich boy is like, I want to be a better baseball player. So like, the things that he is going to come up with, he's only limited by his own imagination. That is a vastly more interesting movie than following around the kid who has nothing but good intentions, but is also super rich.
Oh man, I like the idea. You open up with the day he receives his Nobel Prize for physics or something, Keenbean, and they're like, because of this, now you can get any job in the world, you can do anything you want, and then you switch back to like 6 months later, he's now a child slave.
Right.
It's
right.
It's so cool, but and you've got so many great character actors in this, and Michael McShane as Professor Keenbean is one of them. There's so many people in there, so many that guys that you'll go, wait a second, I've seen him in a gajillion things. There's tons of those actors in here, and they're all just doing like really fun stuff.
Speaking of which, let's get into Larroquette.
Oh man.
I'm glad you say that, because I had a very specific thought when I was watching this movie.
Well, go ahead and give us your thought.
My thought was that John Larroquette, I loved Night Court, and I thought John Larroquette was simultaneously the best thing about Night Court and the worst thing about everything that's not Night Court he was ever in.
What I love about Larroquette in this movie is that Larroquette is playing it totally straight.
Yeah.
He absolutely, it doesn't matter what movie he's in. Look, I am a professionally trained actor, and I am going to professionally be involved in this movie. He plays everything real so that no matter the insane circumstances, he is still the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I love that about this movie. I love that, like, you have that stupid smell gun that's, like the dumbest thing you've ever seen in your life. And Larroquette is looking at it like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. He's basically my surrogate into this movie. And so, like, there's this really neat thing that keeps happening in the movie where, like, they're climbing around Mount Richmore, where it's the richest on the side of a mountain.
Yeah.
And he is, he's playing it totally 100% straight. And I love that about it. I love that about this movie.
I was watching Larroquette and just going, at first, I was like, man, Larroquette's good. But if you put like Gene Hackman in this role, it would have been insane. But as it goes on, you're like, no, Larroquette's he's perfect. He's so good in this role. And you're right. It's because he takes everything seriously. It is a real role and not some silly, stupid kids movie. And he has a little bit of menace to him. And yet he does all the smart things that he would do. Is like, oh, well, I've taken this into account. And when things don't go quite the way that he wants to, he's able to adjust for whatever is needed. And it's a real quality character.
Now, one of my notes that I wrote down is that if you were to tell me last week that I was going to watch a movie where I see John Larroquette just straight up shoot Macaulay Culkin in the chest with an actual gun,
right?
I would have said you were crazy.
It's fantastic.
Totally unrealistic, because I learned from the first Kick-Ass movie that knocks the kid back when that happens.
Yeah, I kept going like, we're going to learn that these are fake bullets or
the realism is not really the strong suit of this film. I will give you that.
You mean this 80-pound child didn't get thrown across the room?
I'm going to say that, just for full disclosure, I really enjoyed the Richie Rich cartoon when I was 6 or 7 years old. Mm-hmm. Like I watched it every Saturday morning. It came on like with Scooby-Doo, and then there was something else that they coupled it with, but it was something I watched for a couple of years every week, and I enjoyed it. But probably my favorite part about the cartoon was Irona, the robot maid that I talked about in the comic book connection. My favorite part, I think objectively the best thing about Richie Rich is Irona, and they decide to not include it in any way whatsoever in this movie, which goes out of its way to be cartoonish and comic booky at times.
Is that why you hate the movie? Because there's no robot?
Yeah, that's part of it at least.
Hey man, I've done that before. Like I read the Lost World book, and then 5 minutes into Steven Spielberg's movie, I'm like, no, this is not like the book. I don't care for this at all.
The book is also awful, just for different reasons.
Yeah.
That book sucks just as bad as Lost World the movie does. They just suck for different reasons.
How dare you.
I've never read the book nor watched the movie, so I'm good on Lost World.
He's a Jurassic Park 3 fan himself.
It's terrible. So another thing that I would totally, again, they made the wrong movie, because Richie Rich is kind of a, it's kind of a boring topic, just a really well-meaning billionaire child. There's not a whole lot there. However, Fancy Boy Academy, where Richie Rich goes to.
Oh, so good.
Now that's a movie. I love the conceit of them sitting at their desks at school, and they're just banker desks. It is terrific.
They've got fax machines. One kid's doing it. He's got his own little putting course set up, and
so good.
One kid's reading the paper. He just goes, "I'll have my secretary get back to you on that one." Like it's so great. In the fencing club and everything. I got ticked off because the coffee was all wrong. He goes, "I asked for this is a cappuccino. That was not a cappuccino. You're wrong."
No, it was not.
Nor was it a latte. It's just so terrible.
This was a time, 1994, when likely the writers, the directors, and everyone watching the movie didn't know a lot about coffee.
Yeah,
like we really upgraded our coffee knowledge since Y2K.
It was that
We've gotten a lot dumber and a lot smarter since then.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was the start of the coffee thing where it was like, ooh, this new thing, and we all didn't quite know what it is just yet. No one could. You didn't have a Starbucks on every corner like you do now, so it was like a cappuccino. It's got to be some sort of coffee thing. Just throw some coffee crap in there. It's
rich people who go to Europe know about what coffee is. Here we got Sanka.
Yeah, throw a little Sanka in the pot. You're good to go, baby. It's so stupid. Oh, and I want to say this. This is one of the movies. Remember when baseball used to be in film?
Oh yeah.
There's been no baseball in movies in forever and a day, but like in the 90s, baseball was still rocking well. I mean, you had Sandlot, like I said, the Major League movies. What was it called? The one where the kid was in the Cubs pitching.
Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year. There's so many great like kids baseball movies. Baseball is gonzo these days.
Wasn't there a baseball movie with the guy that played Joey from Friends?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's called Ed. He has a monkey, and the monkey plays baseball. Of course.
I used to get that movie confused with Dunstan Checks In a lot. Like I thought Dunstan played baseball for a while.
We've had an awful lot of a lack of monkey movies as well. You add monkey and baseball together, boy oh boy, have I bought my ticket.
Yeah, you can't lose. It's a winning combination.
Is he smoking at any point during it? Guess what? You just went up a letter grade.
That is a great bet.
I also kind of miss movies where like the high school, the most important thing in the high school is like the team that competes in a sport that regular high schools don't compete in. Like the I don't know, like the steeplechase team with their horses, and that's what the whole school is all like. Weird stuff like that happened. Like the ski team, Better Off Dead, is all about the death. Like when I was in elementary school watching Better Off Dead, I thought, man, I got to learn to ski so I can be on the high school ski team here in Eastern Kentucky.
We had a ski club. Being from Connecticut,
oh Lord,
ski club. So here's a baseball tip for Richie Rich. Also, at the beginning of the movie, try hitting the ball near the kid who never takes off his sunglasses. You think Reggie Jackson would have told him that?
Man, as soon as I see Reggie Jackson, you guys have to be like me. All you're thinking about suddenly is the end of Naked Gun.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the best endings to a comedy movie ever made. But it did make me think watching this is I wonder why Reggie Jackson never went into the announcer's booth.
I think he famously spoke his mind every time he had the chance.
You are right. That is exactly right.
That's probably stood in the way in the late 80s of making that transition.
Oh, you want to know what I think, huh? Well, let me step back. I got a good one for you. I love Jonathan Hyde as Cadbury is fantastic.
Yeah, he's great.
He's so great. This just proper English butler who you really feel like he cares about this kid.
He's the Alfred Pennyworth to Richie Rich if the parents never died.
Yeah, exactly. Except, they're still kicking. And I like his parents too. And that I got to say, it's nice because we live in a world and you can argue one way or the other, I'm sure. But rich people are always just seen as the worst, most horrible people in the world. And I like that his parents are nice. They're nice, just regular people. They do have their weird rich eccentricities, which kind of makes them fun for me because I love they're out in a raft and they're building everything, getting their former dinnerware, ready to go when they get rescued because they want to look nice.
That is fun.
I love that kind of stuff, but they're never malicious. They're never really mean-spirited people. They make them kind of quote unquote the perfect rich people.
Well, here's the thing, and I totally understand that I'm piggybacking off of Bruce's line where with the movies that we've been watching for Patreon, he had the line, "This guy talks the way that dumb people think smart people sound."
Mm-hmm.
And watching this movie, it is clear that this is the way that poor people think rich people live.
Yes.
If
Very
you've
much.
never met a rich person in your life, this is what poor people think rich people are like.
And I got to say, I've never met like anyone that's of obviously this level, but I've met some very, very well-off people. None of them were, horrible
I've
people.
I've never met billionaires who carve their faces into rock.
No.
But I've met some very, very wealthy people. And for the most part, what most people of opulent wealth do is that they have their projects. Like they don't work. So they, she's learning how to paint, or, we really think it's important to save all the Dalmatians.
Yeah. Jay Leno's
that
all
kind
about
of
his
thing.
cars. Like that's his thing.
And so that's what this movie gets wrong, is that, and it's because it's from the perspective of poor people think rich people live like this.
Yeah.
And so, when you're watching it like today, that for people spending their money the way that the richest spend their money, there would be people picketing outside their house all day, every day, all the time now.
And the best,
just because that is the way the world works now. Like instead of feeding homeless people, you chose to use that money to carve your faces into the side of a mountain, like that kind of thing.
Ooh, with an experimental
It's
laser.
a good
no less.
system.
I even like the idea of the child born into wealth who has Reggie Jackson as a hitting coach goes to the junkyard playground to show up the poor street urchins, take their $10.
First of all, okay, come on, Bruce. This is where like jaded Bruce is coming into play. He just wanted friends, dude. Like, and here's where I think that I have a problem with your problem, is that Richie Rich, he just wants to be a kid. He just wants to have good, proper friends. There's no malicious bone in this kid's body. All he wants to do is just be a regular, normal kid, and he realizes, hey, I've got a lot of money, but money is not buying friendship. The people that I hang out with school, they're not my friends. I love that Cadbury, had tried to cheer him up at one point with a boys choir. And then he goes, "I'm not in the mood for that today." And he goes, "Well, all right, fine." But he's not a horrible person, and I don't think that he looks down on these kids at all. I think he just wants friends, and I don't even think he thinks he's buying their friendship. We had a family that lived down the street. Their dad was a doctor. He had, he was he had more money than he should have had in our neighborhood. I'll say that. But they had like a pool in their backyard. They had like a property with like four-wheelers and all kinds of crazy stuff. We hung out with those kids because we liked them. They just also happened to have a lot of cool crap too. But we didn't like them because of their crap. We liked them because of them. And that's all he wants, is he just wants people to like him. And, sure, they had to kind of half bribe his way in there. But at the same time, I'm also glad that they didn't have that big, giant, come to Jesus meeting with Cadbury going, "Now, Cadbury, it's not good for you to buy my friends or anything." He understood, and you didn't even have to, it didn't even have to be put into words. He was just like, "I get it. I understand that that's what you had to do." And I thought that was kind of fun.
Well, if you enjoy that, that's good for you.
Good Lord.
Adam building up a 10-minute treaty.
Yeah, this is
Just
like
to have Bruce go.
Nice.
Now.
This feels a lot like propaganda. Basically, a lot of propaganda that's like, look, we have it a lot harder than you realize as billionaires. We have trouble finding people to play baseball with, and we have to resort to playing.
But I don't
Hall
think
of
that that's
Famers.
what I don't think that that's what this movie is trying to say, Bruce.
No,
That's why it makes it so much worse that is kind of how it comes across, man. This comes across like straight up propaganda.
No, No, it's because
for sure. And all of the product placement in this movie does not help that at all.
Oh, are you kidding? It's glorious. I love the product because this is when, like, and again in the 90s, this is where product placement started dialing up to 11, and everybody wanted to get in on the game.
And as a nice little twist of commentary, I did see that Macaulay Culkin very likely the richest child in America when he made this movie.
Oh, dude, he's still so rich that, like, he doesn't even have to do anything. But the nice part is, too, is, like, when you find out about him, he doesn't live super opulent or anything like that. He's one of those low-key rich people at this point. It's like, I just kind of do whatever I really want to do.
It makes me think of growing up, you know. I don't know if it was an uncle or somebody always had the joke. Yeah, my one friend told me he wanted to be so rich he never had to work again. And I told him, hey, my brother's never worked a day in his life, and he's broke. You don't have to be rich not to work.
You're working too hard to not work.
The best bit of product placement, and also the watching it during these times, is the McDonald's inside the rich's house.
Yes.
And what makes it so nuts is that the first thing I thought of when Richie Rich serves the poor kids McDonald's is the first thing I thought was, oh, that's some Donald Trump crap right there. It's the first thing I thought of.
Well, my son wanted a McDonald's in the house, so I thought it was fine.
Their whole life to get to a point where they're actually going to be able to, meet the most powerful man in the world, and he's giving him a McBLT.
Yeah.
And I love that at the same time, too, we were also using the company's proper, selling phrase at the time, which is you can I believe Master Richie said his friends deserved a break today, which was McDonald's statement. Have you had your break today? It was so good. I love it. Again, great 90s time capsule.
Man.
Yeah, that's part of the fun of it, right? And not only, the phrasing and technology, although the antiquated technology is probably one of my favorite things about older movies, just because it's so fun to see, oh man, like you were really close on that, or, you weren't close on that kind of thing.
I mean, with the cell phone, like at the dinner table, I thought that was great. And it's still kind of a, flip, so to speak, phone that just kind of flips out at the bottom, which is kind of cool, that great 90s cell phone style. And we get to a point where you could arguably say that was 1994's version of FaceTime with Dad. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Bruce hated it.
I think some of the dynamic that was missing from this movie that made the cartoon and the comics work for me when I was a kid is it was usually Richie trying to stop Reggie from doing something hideous and typical, sort of the typical stereotypes of what the rich bad guy does. And then Richie's the rich good guy that helps stick up for his friends and keep.
Oh, so there's a rich bad kid.
Yeah, Reggie. He's the one who's getting the suit tailored in the special school for rich kids. He's the one getting the suit tailored.
That's way cooler.
And his name is Reggie Van Dough. The movie doesn't make it explicitly clear here, but I think John Larroquette is his father.
Yeah, his last name is Doe.
And also, the movie doesn't make this explicitly clear, but John Larroquette and Richie's mother should be siblings because her maiden name is Van Dough. Yeah.
Oh, that I did not know.
Oh.
Yeah, so the Van Dough family married into the Rich family and vice versa, and then Richie and Reggie Van Dough and Richie Rich are like the cousins. That's like the good kid and the bad kid. The blonde kid is good and the dark-haired kid is bad.
We all know that's
where the
works.
almost Jewish kid is the bad kid.
Yeah,
I get it.
Go figure. And then Jay Gatsby over here is Richie Rich.
Well, that's a lot more than I got out of this movie. I'll tell you that.
That's why I'm wondering, like, how much is made explicitly clear if you have no Richie Rich experience? Because I know you thought
none of that is.
I know you thought I was just being funny, but also a lot about what made the show fun was the kind of ridiculous, cartoonish technology that Keenbean would make and the stuff that Irona would do. And Irona was like super strong, and she's like basically Iron Man in a skirt. So she's always cool to have around. And there was just a lot of adventure In this movie, we do get the adventure with the climbing across the face and stuff, but I think they really didn't want, I guess Macaulay Culkin had to absolutely be the hero and not be saved by Cadbury and Irona and his friends, as he often would in the cartoons and the comic books.
Yeah, that way he has his own. He carves his own path. I have to say that as warm as I am to this movie, one of the things that made me insane while watching it is the extras. The extras in this movie are probably the worst I've ever seen in a movie since this side of like Raimi's Spider-Man. They are so awful in this that it's distracting. That's how bad they are.
Yeah, just kind of looking all over the place, or sometimes feel like they're looking, clearly not where they're supposed to be looking.
Or just like completely incorrect for the scene where, when Richie Rich is at the tool and die company and he's getting the gold-plated wrench set, everybody that's in the crowd there, it's like, do the most inappropriate thing you can possibly do while we cut to you guys. Like, that's literally what it felt like. It's so bad.
I want to talk about that United Tool scene, because I'm sitting here watching this and I'm thinking there are like 50-year-olds that were close to retirement. Their plant got shut down. They're barely keeping their head above water. Thank goodness that the Rich family reopens the plant. But then when you want to give him an award, he sends it like, you're a 50-year-old man trying to keep your family from dying in poverty. And now I got to kiss this 12-year-old kid's butt as a thank you. Like, I think it's more insulting to send your 11 or 12-year-old kid to come give a speech about his wisdom and how he saved you than to just not show up at all and say, sorry, we couldn't make it.
I totally agree with everything you've just said.
And nothing insults me more than seeing a bunch of blue collar on the verge of bankruptcy people pitching in what little bit they got to buy a solid gold ratchet set for a billionaire. Like, I feel like I've spent most of my life being told I have to buy gold ratchet sets for billionaires.
It was plated, Bruce. It's not solid. What's wrong with you? Come on. It's plated gold. They don't got the money to
Bruce,
do that.
Bruce, you make excellent points with all of those things.
But yet, this is a movie that is made for 8-year-olds.
In real life, oh, Lord. I would hope that they would get raked over the coals, all of these people, the Rich family, like all of it. I would hope. However, there is an earnestness to this movie where none of that is real, like it feels like even like no one who's in that crowd works at that tool company.
You look at them and they all look out of place.
Is real. That building is a facade. You know what I mean?
And you got to remember too, I'm a guy who has not only my own personal background, but also I've watched a bajillion Batman comic books and movies and cartoons and stuff where Bruce Wayne gets the gold-plated set and he says, I appreciate the gesture, but I'm going to sell it and donate the proceeds to the Gotham Orphanage. Sure. Like everything, he makes that final. Here, I'm like, I feel like Richie's clueless about the reality of the world he's in and obsessed with how can I get some of these poor folks to be my friends.
So, Bruce, has anyone ever put together that Richie Rich is basically Bruce Wayne without his parents dying?
Well, I know that I have. I don't know if anybody else has, but you'd imagine that in 1953, when they're putting this together, somebody's got to notice it.
Like, what if it wasn't such a downer of a story? Well, we could turn it upside down and have a good old fashioned time here. Let's just not have those short pants.
I feel like there's a writers' meeting and they're like, listen, every story has to have conflict. And then somebody goes, but what if there was a story that didn't? and that's how Richie Rich was created. Like everybody's happy. There's no bad guy. Everybody's like doing wonderful. Like even the bad guy's still not as rich as the rich is, It's just a guy probably doing the same thing Richard Rich Sr. had to do to get rich in the first place. And we're going to kill him.
So wonderful.
Plus, I'm going to say this. I will never have $10.7 billion, which is what they estimate the Rich family was worth in this movie. But if I ever do somehow stumble over $10.7 billion, you better believe I'm building a Mount Brucemore, and it's going to be me and you guys on it.
Perfect.
Oh, sweet.
Hey, hell yeah, I'll take that.
Now, awesome,
Wait,
right?
that did not go the way I thought it was.
No, I didn't either. I thought it was going to be very just kind of, but no, we got involved in it, and all of a sudden I'm like, I approve of this.
I would think that your wife and kids would be plenty pissed about that, but whatever.
We'll be like, he did it with him and his friends. What does he care?
Yeah, because I'm like Richie Rich. I just want you poor guys to be happy too.
Now, did you guys catch the classic Hollywood reference that's going on in this film?
North by Northwest.
Yeah,
right?
it's so good.
Yeah.
I love that, and I love how when Larroquette's on the phone and everything, it's on the screen in the background there, and then of course it leads to the end of North by Northwest. It's so good. I love that.
And what about the line where mom gets her nose blown off on the statue and she screams out that now she looks like Michael Jackson?
Oh,
Would that line
was
be in
very
a more
interesting knowing how close Macaulay Culkin was to Michael Jackson. It's very strange.
But I'm going to be honest with you. I bet you money Michael Jackson saw that and loved every second of it. Was just like, yeah, that's me. I was mentioning a thing.
Because in 94, I didn't think it was common knowledge that he actually didn't have a nose and that was putty he wore as a nose. And that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Well, I mean, it certainly got a lot worse post 94, but there was plenty of action going on at that point, but it only got worse as things went on, for sure.
I wonder, I started wondering if Little Mac had some inside info and he saw the nose get blown off. Goes, that looks like Michael.
Well,
boom, it's
you
stuck.
also figure that Michael Jackson had to have known about this. His little kid friend is in this film. Surely he saw it, and you'd think he would just go, "Oh my God, is that what people think about me? I should really stop this. This is a bit too much."
Imagine
but no,
that threw him into crisis mode.
Oh, he just goes like, "I'll show them. I'll make it even smaller and weirder." Everybody's nostrils are like, isosceles triangles, right?
People can't say your nose looks bad if you ain't got no nose. I mean, he was looking by Voldemort there at the end.
Think about that. He was wearing those masks before anybody else was. Remember when he held a kid off of the balcony?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wasn't that Blanket?
Blanket,
yes,
yeah.
that was Blanket. He held off the side of the
Good
balcony.
Lord.
And a little bit of trivia here. Macaulay Culkin, I think, is Blanket's godfather.
Yeah. I believe that's correct.
I'm a fount of Macaulay Culkin knowledge.
Oh, man. If you like to check out, if you were like, man, what's Macaulay Culkin been doing for the past, 20 plus years here? He was on Joe Rogan a while back. Really great episode. I'd suggest people check that out. It's on YouTube.
I find him so fascinating now. Like, he's such an interesting human being. He does whatever he wants to do. And he's kind of great. Like, that's what I like about him now is like, just doing really weird projects and, his band Pizza or whatever
like
it's
Pizza
called.
Party, Pizza Time, something like that.
The Pizza Party. It's so cool. I like that he shows up on random YouTubers' videos. That's fun.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where he's just enjoying his life and there's no expectation for anything else besides this is just something I want to do. And knowing how awful his parents were and the way he turned out, like, I'm sure that there's drug abuse and things like that at some point in his life, but it seems like that part has gone past, or at least he's just gotten a lot better at it.
Yeah.
And so now he's just, just this really chill, cool guy.
Like, didn't he live with Mila Kunis for a while? Like some crazy guys live life to the fullest.
Yeah, I listen. Anything that somebody said Macaulay Culkin had done at some point, I'd just be like, yeah, probably. It wouldn't surprise me too awful much.
He was the person in the Grimace suit from 2002 to 2004. Nobody knew.
I know somebody who was Grimace once. I really do. I really do.
Does he put that on his resume? Because that would be the
not
first thing on
him.
mine.
Not a
Okay.
him.
Did she-
And
did she need
if the
non-binary?
authorities haven't shown up to her house yet, I'm very surprised.
I'll have it. Remind me. I got a McDonald's story for the post show, so I'll talk about that there.
I wonder how the Grimace audition works.
Can you look like a big purple gelatinous thing that no one understands exactly what you are or what your meaning in the universe is? Perfect.
Done and done.
I think it basically comes down to, does the suit fit?
Can you stand the smell for more than 15 minutes? If so, you might have a place in the
You smell
McDonald's
like
family.
Grimace.
You smell like the previous Grimace's farts now.
Oh, but man, Macaulay Culkin was like Macaulay Culkin was kind of my guy, right? Because he's only 2 years older than I am, but he's always looked younger than he actually was. So I was the perfect age when Home Alone came out and when this came out. It was like seeing a little version. And I was a little blonde kid. I'm not now, but like I was a little blonde child, and so I look like this kid does. And I don't know, there was just something about him that he was really cool at the time if you were that age. And I don't know, I enjoyed it a whole heck of a lot. Now, before we get to our final grade here and everything, we do have to ask ourselves one very, very important question. It is, how does Richie Rich from 1994 relate back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone?
Why, thank you, Adam. You know what? I happen to have a prepared statement.
Oh.
Joel Silver produced Richie Rich as well as every action movie in the late 80s and 90s. He's also a walking, talking stereotype that if you saw him as a fictional character in a movie, you would be offended and the Jewish Action League would immediately get to work as they should, because damn Joel Silver. Damn. If the Hamburglar was a real person, he would be Joel Silver. This next part is conjecture, but I like to think that a bejeweled and stinking of too much cologne Joel Silver walked into the offices at Warner Brothers one day in 1993 and said, "Look at here. I got your next project. Richie Rich, played by the actual richest kid in the world." And the suits at Warner Brothers said, "That's a wonderful idea, and you had us at look at here." Now, the next part of this isn't conjecture because the movie was a personal pet project for producer Joel Silver, which after a long development process came to fruition when Macaulay Culkin was signed on. Why was Richie Rich anyone's pet project? Are there throngs of people clamoring for a Richie Rich movie? Is it like people who go crazy whenever anyone starts talking about the next phase of Marvel? My guess is no, but Joel Silver wanted to make it, and make it he did. With the money he made from Richie Rich, I like to think that Joel Silver was finally able to pick up the phone and say to his good friend Jeffrey Epstein, "Let's go do the girls' JV basketball team thing we talked about." If there's one thing I know for certain, it's that Joel Silver loves being in the Sylvester Stallone business, producing 3 different movies: Demolition Man, Assassins, and Bullet to the Head. All of these movies are amazing and are grossly underrated and do not suffer from varying degrees of quality in any way. And there you have it, co-vaxxers. This week's Stallone Connection is producer Joel Silver. There's a few things in my past that if they ever came up, I'm in trouble. Thank you. Thank you.
And if you'd like to see like a living embodiment of what Joel Silver is, check out the movie True Romance. Saul Rubinek plays Lee Donowitz in that movie, who is modeled after Joel Silver.
He's so totally Joel Silver.
Yeah. Just doing cocaine and all kinds of crazy stuff because that's how Joel Silver runs, everybody. All right, let's get down to it because, boy, oh boy, it's going to be an interesting one. Bruce, where does Richie Rich fall on the Robin rating system for you, sir?
It's a movie, if you saw it when you were a kid and you're nostalgic about it, go ahead and watch it. It's not one of those where you're going to see it and it seems dramatically different from when you watched it as a kid. If you've never seen it before, you've kind of already decided you don't need to see this movie, and I would agree with that. There's just not much that really holds up. In fact, I would recommend the direct-to-video sequel that was made like 4 years later called Richie Rich's Christmas Movie or whatever, because that one actually has a comic book accurate Irona in it.
Jeez Louise.
And it has Eugene Levy, so that's always a big guy.
All right.
when Bruce bear traps onto something, good Lord.
You ain't letting it go, boy. He just dies in that trap.
So I'm gonna give this like this low Damian Wayne. That's like, if you already know you like it, you don't really care what I rank it as anyway. But the truth is, if you haven't seen it yet, go straight to the sequel.
Fair enough. Sean, what do you got?
One of the things that I did get to talk about is, how they're rolling out the red carpet for Richie Rich as he shows up at the tool company, as the spokesman for Rich Incorporated or whatever. As they're rolling out the red carpet, they're using this like little like machine that like rolls out the red carpet.
It was weird.
And I was just like, is it something that's manufactured? Like, is that something where like, is there like a leading brand of red carpet rollout machines? You know what I mean?
What's worse than that?
Like, what's the Kleenex of red carpet rollout machines? It's just something that I thought about.
But and the thing that ticked me off was you didn't roll it all the way up to the door of the helicopter. What am I supposed to take 3 steps on actual cement before I get to the red carpet? What's wrong with you?
Like those poor kids playing baseball? Get out of here.
Disgusting.
And I've got to confess, I've walked on carpets of multiple colors. Red's not any better.
Oh, I think you're wrong. There's an air of mystique to stepping on a red carpet. There's just something about it. I don't know.
For me, this movie is, although I clearly had a better time than Bruce for once watching a movie, for me, it's a Damian Wayne. I mean, it's just like straight up the gut Damian Wayne. It's not something where you should seek it out. It's not that kind of movie. But if it's on, it's not going to offend you where your ears hurt listening to it.
Unless your name's Bruce Leslie. Outside of that,
it's a time capsule. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah. For me, I'm shocked. I am shocked and astounded by what I'm going to give this, which is a Dick Grayson. I really enjoyed this. This was so much fun.
Oh man, you are so ridiculous.
Listen, and I'm not going to sit there and tell you that this isn't curbed by me growing up with this movie, because it absolutely is. Because it's stupid, it's fun, but like if you go into this movie expecting what you're getting, it's exactly what you're going to get, and it is amongst those, just super fun early '90s movies. It's good, and this is one of these movies that I could easily see showing my niece and nephew who are like what are they, like 5 and 9 or something like that. They're right in that kind of area. This is perfect for those type of kids. And at the same time, like Sean said, as a parent, you wouldn't be like, oh God, this is pathetic. But I'd say if you're like someone in their like, mid 30s to late 30s like I am, and you remember seeing this as a kid, you'll probably enjoy it. There's good performances overall. I like the whole Cadbury goes to prison subplot. There's just a lot
that is the best part.
There's a lot of just stupid, dumb stuff in this, and I just found myself with a smile on my face the whole time. And I like I said, I didn't remember seeing this, but boy, I guess I watched a lot of it because man, I remembered a ton, and I had a blast.
Only '90s kids really get this.
Exactly. We got to post that up on something. So that is it, everybody. Richie Rich. It is available on HBO Max. I want to specifically say HBO Max. Last week I said Netflix, but it was there for a hot second, and then not. But I guess there's a new Richie Rich television series on Netflix. Maybe we'll get Bruce to watch that at some point. Maybe he won't.
I've watched it because I was a Richie Rich fan as a kid. Got to say, TV show not good.
Ooh, all right. Well, maybe we'll put it off a little bit until they get into season 2 when it gets real good.
It could just very well be that this isn't Bruce's property.
This
IP. Bruce is like, no, thank you.
Yeah, we gotta wait for him to leave another episode to cover some more Richie Rich. We'll get somebody to fill in, I'm sure. But that is it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking our Patreon selection. What movies are we choosing from? You got to head on over to patreon.com/HMP to find all that kind of good stuff out, and of course get yourself more good stuff as well. Bruce, in the meantime, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
You can go check out the latest episode of Chubby Wizard, where you will hear me talk at great length about the Corn Palace in Mitchell, South Dakota.
Corn Palace, you say? Well, you had me at corn. Sean?
Why don't you go to Mandalorian 30 Questions, where we ask 30 questions about each episode of the television series Mandalorian.
And hey, man, if you enjoy the television show Snowpiercer, that first season just wound up, and we've got all 30 questions for you on all of our episodes, and we've got an interview coming up and not too awful long with one of the stars of the television series. So check that out wherever you find our podcasts, Snowpiercer 30 Questions. That'll do it, everybody. Join us next week for our Patreon selection for Sweet Sean's and Kovacs from the Internet. Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portress, reminding you to stay super, everybody.
I'm already needed.
Cash, cold, that's what I need. Whoa.